Coming up on today's episode.
And do you know what? There's one phrase that I really hate, right? And I know I shouldn't. I'm probably going to get absolutely blasted. But you hear this everywhere. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's where you water it, right? And this really ticks me off. Now, first of all, yes, I'm not talking about the minute you get a bit uncomfortable with life, you go, sod it, I'm buggering off, this isn't working. You know, you do have to put the effort in to try to make things work, to see what is kind of potentially going to grow within that situation. That's really, really important, because when all is said and done, if you leave that relationship, you leave that job, you leave that friendship, you need to leave knowing that you did your best and that you feel comfortable within yourself that you gave your all. But staying somewhere, whatever the situation, that inherently doesn't feel right, hasn't felt right, is making you feel lost, less of yourself. It's not about bailing on something. It's about like watering your own bloody grass. You know, what makes you happy? And again, as long as the intention is not to go about hurting people, letting people down, doing it because you're not doing your own internal work, it is okay to go and find out what works for you, as long as you are doing the work and you are not intentionally going around just hurting people. So,
welcome to Spirit in Sass, the podcast where intuition meets attitude and real talk gets a little more magical. Hosted by us, Kelly Clark and Jodie Mayhead. This is your space for soulful insight, honest conversations, and a few laughs along the way.
Hello, it's us again.
Welcome back, peoples. Absolutely wonderful to have you back here. Here we are again, another week. Who can believe how fast these weeks are going? Absolutely flying by.
I know. We should be pros by now, Jo.
We should, I know, we should. We're still getting there, guys, but we're working hard on it, definitely.
So welcome to another episode. We hope you've been enjoying it. We've been having some great feedback. So we've been kind of tailoring some of our stuff towards things that you guys want to hear. So please do keep giving us that. It really does help. So today's episode is all about, why do I feel lost when life actually looks quite good? You know, it's all about that feeling of, yes, I'm grateful. I've got, a wonderful life. I've got a good job. I've got a lovely house. I've got great kids. I've got a great husband, all these bits and pieces, but something still feels a little bit off. And that's what we're going to kind of investigate today. What is that feeling? What can we do about it? And just really explore that.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. It's like when your outer world looks great, but your inner world feels empty. And obviously everybody judges from the outer world because people see, what they perceive is going on from you just from external kind of looking out from the outside looking in, but nobody has access to that inner world. And I think that can be quite lonely.
Yeah.
Sometimes, your inner world can be quite a lonely place because it's only you in it. So, that's what we're looking at today.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's always an individual choice as to what good looks like, isn't it? And we can feel really selfish sometimes. Like I can sit there and think, like, I feel really shit. Like, I don't particularly feel unhappy, but I don't feel happy. And so for somebody else, they'd be looking at you going, oh, that person's really successful. She's got a great job. She's able to, she's got a wonderful family, a lovely home, So people will be from the outside looking in. And even you can see it yourself. You're like, God, why do I feel like this? I shouldn't feel like this. There are so many people that are worse off. But actually, it's defining what success looks like. And to some people, having a lovely home and, a wonderful doting partner and brilliant kids and all these things, that's success. But for other people, success is something different. So we can't berate ourselves for not feeling what we think we should feel, because that's putting expectations on ourselves, and we're entitled to feel exactly how we feel in any one given moment. That's the very first thing. You're not wrong for feeling like that. It just means you're going to have to go a little bit deeper and figure out where that internal off balance is coming from.
Yeah, and I think for some, there's so many different aspects for that, and everybody's kind of, we're going to go over quite a few different points and reasons, and they will resonate with some more than others, because everybody walks a different life path, and people feel the feels in different ways for different reasons. So what might resonate with one won't for another. But I do think, and I think we go through stages of life where, and right from when obviously when we're born, and then we're children through to kind of in your teens, 20s, adults, and there'll be stages where we come across this feeling quite a bit. From the outside things look great, but inside you're a bit lost. I don't think this happens only once, nowhere near only once in a lifetime. I do feel it kind of goes with seasons of life, and you almost start to notice this when you're maybe coming towards the end of a season and about to start another, maybe, who knows. But there's different versions. I think certainly if you kind of get to my age, this whole midlife thing, it's possible that people could be feeling slightly kind of empty when they're almost like mourning a life that they haven't had, because I think at my age now, you suddenly start to think, God, time's running on. I am getting older, and maybe what I thought, when you're in your teens, 20s, and you have a real ideal vision, and you're dreaming big because you're young and you're like vibrant and you're energetic, and at that point the world is your oyster, and it still is even at our age. But you kind of foresee yourself, you might become an artist, a musician, you might want to do a lot of travel, you might have a real successful, you might be a high-flying business woman, man, whatever. You could have gone down the corporate route. Suddenly you get to our age, and it's easy to think, oh, actually, I haven't hit any of that. And it's maybe you could be mourning kind of what you thought your life was going to look like, and how it's maybe not ended up looking like that. There is probably a slight bit of you that's mourning that grief, that's never actually come into fruition.
Yeah, and actually what's really interesting is you've got the group of people that will feel like that, and then you've got the group of people that will be living the life they've planned. So they have got the career that they planned at 18, the husband, the children, but where they have grown into a different version of themselves. That whole season thing you're talking about,
absolutely.
That life that they planned at that point, that they've achieved, which is wonderful and should be everything they've wanted, suddenly doesn't fit the person that they've become. And that can be a real internal battle, because you're like, but this is what I've wanted. This is what I've wanted my whole life. Why isn't this fitting? And that's when people then take that personally. The people that you've brought around you during that season of your life, they almost think, well, what have I done wrong? Am I not good enough for that person anymore? And that's when you hear we've spoken about this before, that, well, you've changed. And yes, well, I have changed. And it's not done on purpose, and it isn't about anybody else. But you are no longer fitting into the life that you thought you wanted, which you did want X amount of years ago. And that too comes with, that's really hard, because you're self-critical then. Well, I have changed. I'm letting everybody down. I built this. I asked for this. And now I'm saying I don't want this. That's a really tricky thing to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like balance within yourself, because it just makes you feel that you fucked up, really. And it's not the case. It's really, really not. It's natural to change and grow.
I think, it's 100% normal for so many, that it is absolutely possible to kind of outgrow the version of yourself that you created and was desperate, to succeed. You kind of have a vision, like I said, at some point, whether, in your early years or wherever you are within life, of what at that moment in time you are striving for. And that could be achievement, validation. You want to be proving yourself, you're busy, you've got all these big jet setting ideas. And then when you get there, actually what you now want in life can look totally different. You might want more peace, you might want more purpose, you might want a slower pace of living, you might want to be more deep and meaningful within your relationships. And this kind of absolutely throws you sideways, because you're like, I've been wanting this my whole life, now I've got it. Why am I not happy with that? And that's just because you've outgrown that version. What we see is a bit of an identity crisis, or you put yourself through the ringer for kind of feeling like you've hurt people, you're changing your mind, you don't know what you want. Actually, you're just evolving. You are evolving, and that is okay. I don't think anybody's dreams stay the same as they go throughout life, but it's when you're in that transition that it can absolutely become a little bit overwhelming, and you can feel so lost.
And do you know what? There's a one phrase that I really hate, right? And I know I shouldn't. I'm probably going to get absolutely blasted. But you hear this everywhere. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's where you water it, right? And this really ticks me off. Now, first of all, yes, I'm not talking about the minute you get a bit uncomfortable with life, you go, sod it, I'm buggering off, this isn't working. You know, you do have to put the effort in to try to make things work, to see what is kind of potentially going to grow within that situation. That's really, really important, because when all is said and done, if you leave that relationship, you leave that job, you leave that friendship, you need to leave knowing that you did your best and that you feel comfortable within yourself that you gave your all. But staying somewhere, whatever the situation, that inherently doesn't feel right, hasn't felt right, is making you feel lost, less of yourself. It's not about bailing on something. It's about like watering your own bloody grass. You know, what makes you happy? And again, as long as the intention is not to go about hurting people, letting people down, doing it because you're not doing your own internal work, it is okay to go and find out what works for you, as long as you are doing the work and you are not intentionally going around just hurting people. So I'm sure lots of people may disagree with that. And I'm not talking about any one particular situation, but you have to do what is right for you and sod what other people say or do. It's really, really important. I'm a big advocate of that. Not doing things like that, sitting with things, making sure it's right. And this can take months, this can take years to get to these points. But don't be afraid to do something, because people are going to say, well, if you'd sat it out, it might have got better. You know, trust your instinct, what is right for you.
Exactly that. And I think lives are busy. We get so good at coping and surviving that we then almost lose contact with ourselves. You stop almost dreaming, because life is just now one big whole heap of responsibility, whether that be kind of mortgages, bills, work pressures, children, caring for others, whatever that might look like. All these responsibilities take over. So then you kind of focus so much on other people. You are the efficient one, the reliable one, the honest one. You're strong, you're helpful. You take all these amazing identities on, but actually that's at the cost of your own kind of identity and your own possible wants. You've spent years almost, and this is, like Kel said, this is not a quick thing. You spend years and you're almost like responding to life and situations, but you're not actually choosing the path forward. You are just in that hole. I say it all the time, and I really wish I didn't. And for anybody that knows me well, they will have heard me say this, oh, how are you? And I'm like, surviving rather than thriving. It's an awful saying, but that really sums up how I feel, so much of the time. Sometimes it's so easy for dreams to kind of get replaced with the logistics. And that isn't because we failed. This is just living as a human on this, on this journey, on this planet. Life happens, and it can absolutely take over without us even realizing it. And we just go on autopilot. We wake up, we go to work, we do the school runs, we binge, Netflix for an hour on an evening, we do our skincare routine, we brush our teeth, we go to bed, and we get up and we do exactly the same. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is life. But equally, when we're on that, we are in autopilot and we are not really noticing or feeling anything. Nothing's really fully experienced, because we're just in that constant, like, what's next, what's next, what's next? Because there is that overwhelming feeling that if you kind of do stop or pause or, don't do the what next, then that's it. It's all going to just kind of crash and burn.
I think busyness is actually a really interesting topic.
Huge
actually, because modern life calls for it. We are all busy, and we quite often say in our sort of, if you watch any of our energy updates, you need to take 5 minutes for yourself, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, who are we kidding? We too are buggers for taking 5 minutes for ourselves and sitting with what we want. But we fill our days up with so much shit. Probably some of it is unnecessary. And the amount of times I've gone away and my family have absolutely survived without me, whereas had I been there, I would have run around like a bloody crazy thing, tending to everybody's kinds of needs and things like that. But we fill our lives with so much stuff that we think that that's going to kind of hide the slight emptiness we might be feeling, but it's going to creep up, guys. You know, at the most least minute that you expect it, we can fill our lives with all kinds of stuff, but that feeling of, do you know what, something just isn't quite right, it isn't going to go away. And how long can you ignore that? I'd love to know, like, some people will ignore that their whole lives. And I just think to myself, and I am a bit of a maverick, and I know this, but life is just too short to be living with this feeling inside of you that you're just not being who you're meant to be, or what. Now, I'm not saying we're all going to turn into these wonderful gurus and end up with these dazzling careers. You know, we are here to learn lessons, and we're going to learn them whatever path or route it takes. But don't fill your life with so much stuff thinking that that's going to solve that feeling of things not being quite right, I guess.
Yeah. And I think as well, you know, if you kind of put in kind of biology and, you know, how our bodies are wired, and I know this bores the hell out of you, Kel, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going with it, Jode. But, you know, prolonged stress, and I'm sure, you know, that I can't imagine there is anybody listening that's not experienced, you know, a length of stress in their lives. And for me, particularly, I feel like my whole life is one big stress. And that's something we can talk about again a bit later. But what happens is when you're in that prolonged period of stress, your nervous system becomes conditioned to that. It expects that. That is now you operating at your new normal. So what happens is when we start to go through a quieter spell and things calm, your nervous system gets really kind of panicked, and it's like, well, nothing's happening. This isn't right. You know, you're calm and you'll never calm. It doesn't know how to then kind of regulate you in that new space. So what we unconsciously do at times, not everybody, I am a queen for this, I will start to create problems or drama or pick things apart because that is what I know and that is what I'm comfortable with. So there is always that kind of physical element as well, that we just, our lives are so different to what they once were now. In this fast-paced environment, is our bodies physiologically are not necessarily designed for kind of the demands that we give them today. And then what happens is you can easily start to confuse peace, which is kind of what we probably, most of us want. But then when you get it, you're bored. It becomes boredom. And then you're lost, you know, and that can also come in when we've been, you know, it's quite, you know, that empty nest syndrome is quite a classic, you know, I'm not there yet because my kids haven't fled the nest. I can't ever see that they're going to, if I'm honest. But anyway, that's again a whole different topic. But that is quite common. It's not unheard of. Some will absolutely thrive once the kids are buggered off, but there are others that absolutely, that was their identity, their purpose in life, and that can cause issues in itself. Because my mum and I, we speak about this a bit, and we had a wonderful day out yesterday, but I'm not kidding you, my phone did not stop. For whatever reason, I had, you know, all my children for various different reasons in crisis on the phone. Then I had a work colleague and, you know, things like that. And I was like, you know, I just need a day to myself. But my mum was like, oh, nobody's tried to contact me. You know, nobody needs me. And she was like, don't wish this away, Jodie. You know, when life does quieten down and you don't have all these kind of, you know, you're not as much needed or you're not as busy, it comes with another set of problems, because then what you think you're aspiring to, of this wonderful world of calmness, actually can quite easily turn into boredom, and you don't know. And because, like I said earlier, we lose our identities because we are in surviving mode the whole time. Once your life starts to evolve on a different path, because that's your journey and things quieten, you don't know yourself anymore. You don't know what your dreams are. You do feel lost and you are bored.
And we all have these different identities, don't we? Who I am as a mother, you know, who you are as a work person, who I am in work, you know, all these different identities we build, and people see you in a different way. But that doesn't mean that that's going to stay, that identity, you know, again, with the whole seasons, identities, we change our identity constantly. And that's not because we're, you know, psychopaths or anything like that. It's because as our life changes, so does our responses to things. And we have become sort of experts in performing, haven't we? We have become experts in getting up, feeling like crap and going, it's all right, surviving. Not that good old catchphrase that Jodie has used. We've become really good at that, and everybody has. We've become really good at sticking things up on social media, and I try my best now to actually lift that facade. I try to be quite open and honest, or I don't really put anything at all, because so many people will look at your glossy photos, and I know this is an issue that's come up time and time again, and measure you by that. Oh, well, look, they've gone off on holiday for 6 weeks to the Caribbean. They must be living their best life, Yet you don't know. That person probably didn't want to go to the Caribbean for 6 weeks, but maybe felt that they had to or needed to. But even regardless of what's going on with other people or how we're performing to these different identities, when all is said and done, when we lie awake at night overanalyzing and overthinking, that feeling of kind of like, where are we going? What do we want? Is still going to be there. So it is about enjoying what you have in that moment, absolutely. Sitting with what lights you up again. And we come back to this feeling. Notice where your energy is. Now, we get frustrated that the kids want 20 million things, but we know deep down that we wouldn't be without them. That is it's bad energy, good energy, lots of energy, but it's energy that kind of lifts us when we have those great moments with them. So where in your identities is the energy just not sitting? Where are you performing and not actually being yourself? And that's a really good starting point to think about. Okay, my life might be good. My life might look great. Something's not sitting right within me. Let's root back to those feelings. Where is your energy not being lit up? Where are those situations where you are not just feeling that you're able to be who you are?
I think social media has so much to answer for. I really do. I mean, God, many moons ago, you could only compare yourself to the neighbours, really, or family members. That was it. That was kind of all you had access to. Yeah, now you can compare yourself to the whole world, and it absolutely pours fuel on this treadmill of we are not doing enough, we have not achieved enough. We can book a lovely holiday and then you realise somebody's camped out in the Caribbean for 6 weeks and suddenly you feel really shit about the holiday that you were really looking forward to. You renovate your house, you get a new kitchen, and then obviously, I don't know, Bob down the road's got one, 10 times bigger. You've built a successful business, and I don't know, Francis has a business that's 10 times got the turnover. I'm not very good with names. Bob and Francis weren't the best, but that's kind of how it is. What we kind of once would have fulfilled us and we would have genuinely been content with, suddenly, social media just is like, nah, I don't know why you're celebrating that. That's shit, A holiday, to Devon for the week is nothing. You should be in the Caribbean for 6 years, and that's how it is. But I think as well, we are also, I think, going back. We know social media can be, it can be great in so many ways. It can be toxic in others. I wouldn't want to be a teenager growing up with this. I'm not going to lie now. It's a very different world. And I don't get it. And my kids say you do not get it. And I don't. But I think it's stripping back from that. And it's like Kel said, going back within, forget what everybody else is doing and what they're achieving and, what their kitchen looks like. Just go back to you, because everybody's dreams and aspirations will be different. I think another big thing that we really don't do as much as we should do these days is we do not celebrate our wins, probably because in fear of being compared to others, or people thinking, oh, well, that's nothing, why are you celebrating that? My kitchen is much bigger than yours. But actually we don't. We pass an exam, we do a project, we lose weight, whatever that looks like, we start a business like we are now, and doing something we enjoy, and then we go, yeah, brilliant, pass that exam, right, moving on to the next thing. And we don't celebrate our wins as much as we should. No. Because we don't give ourselves time to sit and really reflect on what that means to us. And there'll be so many reasons for that, like fast-paced environments and that. But I do feel there will be, because you just don't want to look a twat. People will be like, oh, why are you celebrating that? You don't want to be like, oh, it's because comparison is a huge thing. And then, we don't allow our nervous system to absorb the success. We don't feel it within ourselves. So suddenly we're back on this automatic treadmill and we're on to the next. and it all goes back to slowing down and going within. You know, all of these points kind of go back to exactly the same type of thing. 100%.
I'm going to ask you a question, Jade. I'm going to put you right on the spot now.
God.
Okay. When have you felt the most lost, but not lost, when have you felt the most lost in your life, but everybody would have thought you looked okay? Can you think of a scenario?
Yeah, I can, exactly that. After I built my house.
Okay. Ooh.
So, and I think this is, you know, nobody prepares you for what happens once the dreams come true, because it is that whole you think your whole life will fall into place and it will be fixed, and that isn't the case, and we'll move on to that in a moment. But yeah, for me, we had this dream. My husband really had the dream. I was absolutely on board with it. It would be unfair to say that the dream was all his. It wasn't, but it did take him quite some years to convince me this was the right thing to do. He was ready to leave our old house way before I was, because my life was easy there. I had the kids' school opposite. I had really good friends within the street. You know, it was all tickety-boo in my world, until one day it wasn't. We became that family in the street, and we really pissed off all the neighbours. So it became, at that point, I was like, yeah, it's now or never, really, because this is going, you know, my kids are getting older and we are that feral family. So we did ship them into the middle of nowhere in what they would say was a stable, and they weren't overly happy at the time. Now they love it. And we did do it. And it felt right for me at that point. It definitely felt like the right time. And we were getting older, you know, we weren't going to get a mortgage to do this if we didn't bloody hurry up with it. And so we acquired this wonderful plot. It was wonderful to us. It was hugely overgrown. It had about 30 goats on it. But it is an acre plot, which is great, because my kids are outdoor kids. They just need that space. We need that space as a family, actually, as well. So to some, they would have been like, what have you bought? And to us, it was perfect. It was just a little old barn. It was 2 beds, very old, very run down. It had a wonderful workshop on it that my husband absolutely was over the moon with, but unfortunately he had to come down because we needed a bigger house, and that's where the planning for the house had to go. And we set about doing it. I definitely manifested this. That's a whole nother topic which we'll talk about.
We've talked about one.
It really ticks him off when I say, no, this was a good gift from the universe, this. And he's like, no, I worked really hard all my life for this. But anyway, but it all felt right, and it came with ease. We built this house from scratch, and actually when I say we built it, we were not in the luxurious space of being able to afford contractors to come in and do this for us. We only had enough money that we would physically build it ourselves. So my dad, absolutely, all credit to him, came and he built this house for us. With me, I worked on the cement mixer for 1.5 years. No doubt of a lie. It was the best times of my life. It was the most challenging times of my life. And we absolutely got it done. We had to raise a family, run a business in this time, and we were all on top of each other. It was bloody chaos. And it was stressful, and it actually did nearly end up in divorce, because we were exhausted. We were I was working on the house all day. Dan was having to kind of earn the money, and then we'd come back and I'd have a list a mile long of stuff that he now needed to get done, ready for the next day. We were exhausted, and we just had no opportunity to refill our cup, because we are still living in this chaos. And we built it, and everybody now looking at us, thinks, wow, we are super proud. We have got a lovely, beautiful home. We've got a lovely big garden. Harry's got the space to go in his shed, do what he needs to do. All the children kind of have their own bathrooms and bedrooms and space within the house. It works ideal for our family. The outside's a bit of a building site still, probably always will be, because anybody else that's done a self-built project knows the money doesn't go as far as you think it will. And that will always be evolving. And anybody looking at it, and I feel like say it all the time, people are like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And I can't help but go, oh, I'm super, super grateful, but it nearly killed us. We did this, and then I sound like an absolutely ungrateful cow. But for everybody else looking at us, they're like, yeah, you're made. You've built your dream home. Your business is still good. And I absolutely know that is. But the trials and tribulations that come with that, and then what happens is you think this will solve all your problems. You think by having the lovely big house will kind of fulfill these gaps that you've been missing. But actually the reality is they don't. Because what happens is it becomes your new normal. You get your pay rise, you take, you get a promotion, whatever. You're going to get an extra 5-10K a year. Bloody brilliant. In a few months' time, that new big salary is now your normal. Your brain will just
and it's gone.
Your brain normalizes it. It just now becomes the new normal, and that kind of those endorphins for that are now back gone. You know, our brains are not wired to keep us happy. They are there for survival, so the brains will try to then just go, right, next, you've got to keep going, you've got to keep surviving. I've got this wonderful home, it brings me so much. Absolute shitter to clean. And I don't have a cleaner, I don't have a freaking gardener, I don't have any of that. And often I stress like hell, God, you know, it doesn't bring you always the fulfillment or the happiness that you think it's going to, even though when I'm being rational, I'm bloody grateful. I really am. And I know it works for my family. But when I'm in the depths of cleaning everybody's bastarding toilets because no bugger seems to be able to do it, then I am not, you know, I am cursing like hell. And I am wanting that little, you know, semi-detached that I used to live in just to come back because it was easy and my life was easy there.
So Joe, semi-detached, it still turns into a shithole that you have to clean all the time anyway.
Sorry,
but,
you did not expect such a long answer.
No, I think it was a lovely answer. And I think it raised quite an interesting point. And actually something you mentioned earlier, you talked about contentment, about being content with things. And we talk about comfort. And it's a really interesting thing as to whether people confuse comfort and contentment with happiness. And I've been kind of pondering on this a little bit. And I've come to the conclusion that it depends on the kind of person you are and what you're happy with. And I think if contentment and having enough is what fills you up, it keeps you safe and secure, and that's great, then I think that is bloody brilliant. If, however, what you're searching for is different, then that too is okay. So it's a really interesting concept between contentment, comfort, and happiness. And I think the really overarching thing is what your life looks like is up to you, you know, and how you feel about those things are really up to you. And feeling lost in life or unhappy in something, that really isn't the problem. It's sometimes just a signal that your life has grown in a different way, and how you want that to look is up to you, you know. And that's really, for me, that kind of key message is, again, it comes back to this: growth is uncomfortable, you know, and sometimes it's not about being lost. You may know what it is you need to do to get your life where you want it to be, or to get that feeling of happiness, contentment, comfort, whatever that looks like for you. But it's what the aftermath or the dealing with that you have to do in order to come out at the other end of that. And I just think it's really interesting that we look at people, you know, like you said, Joe, people will look at you with your beautiful house, and it is a truly stunning home.
They think I'm a shallow cow.
But, and, you know, they think you've got everything. But actually, you know, you've got so much going on in your life, so much that you have to deal with and that you're holding the fort for. And you are the most down-to-earth, wonderful, loving, genuine, giving human being out there. And actually, people don't realise the cost of what having this home came for you. And at points, still does come for you.
I had PTSD, I think, from operating that bloody cement mixer for 1.5 years. And my dad is the biggest critic. Anybody that knows him, he is the biggest critic. And even after 1.5 years, I don't think I perfected the cement, quite how he wanted it. But
what do you think? Good job. I would have gone, I don't like it. I've been absolutely
I had no choice. It was the only way. But I think in general, nobody teaches us or prepares us for what happens once the dream comes true.
Yeah.
You know, we all kind of aspire and have dreams, and then we're never prepared, because often achievement does leave this surprise of silence.
Well, because you changed during that process. Everything you went through building this beautiful home would have changed you, because every big thing does.
And I did read up, again, sorry, Kel, a bit wordy, I know, but like there's something called the hedonic treadmill. And studies do suggest that even after positive life events, negative life events, you know, however that looks, people will often return close to their usual level of well-being over time. That's just what we do. And that, like I said, can go back to the pay rise, the new house, marriage, new car, whatever that might be. But as humans, we will 9 times out of 10 people, we take it back to to the normal. And it isn't that your brain's trying to rob you of happiness, like I said earlier. It's just trying to adapt you to focus on the next challenge. So we're almost designed and built to constantly evolve. And studies do suggest that both positive and negative life events, you always tend to gravitate. It becomes your new normal. We take ourselves back to that. It's easy to think that like dopamine is the happiness chemical. We hear of this all the time. Or get your dopamine going, but actually it isn't. It is obviously it is, but it is really involved with like motivation, learning, moving forwards. It's what drives us, but it often peaks before the reward rather than after it. So if you ever had it, Kel, where you've like booked a holiday and you almost enjoy the build up 100%. To the holiday more than once you're actually on the holiday.
Same with birthdays, it's the same with Christmas. I love all the build up to this, but the anticipation, we're going away, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then you get there, and don't get me wrong, it's wonderful. But I remember a few years ago, booked this really dream holiday. Hadn't been able to afford anything like it. I mean, I say dream, for some people it wouldn't have been dream, but we had a little swim up room on the Greek Isles, and it was really beautiful. Never done anything like it before. And I remember halfway through the holiday, I went and I had a massage as well, which was really lovely. And I came out of that massage and I was on my own and everything. And I burst into tears. And I was crying. Do you know why? Because I thought, I'm never going to get this again. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm never going to feel this happy again. I mean, what an absolute ridiculous thing to do. Crying in the middle of a dream holiday because you feel that you can't enjoy it enough because it's going to end. And, so I totally get that feeling. I mean, it is ridiculous. And I try to live my life a bit more in the moment and a bit more meaningful now. But yeah, so much do I enjoy that moment before. And then when the thing happens, it's a bit like, well, it's done now, isn't it? But I do think that's having key things to look forward to sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm the classic. I don't know if anybody else does this or if this is a me, but I will start dreading the going home about 3 days, 4 days before I go home. It almost, because I'm anticipating that getting back to reality, whatever, that it almost, and sometimes I can be on such a Debbie Downer when I come home. I almost wonder whether it's worth me going on holiday. So that is definitely a thing. And I think this is why we need to, what we've been saying, it's all about evolving, and like Cal said, it's really tuning in. So when we've evolved and we've achieved and we've done what we were doing, and that life season is starting to come towards the end of it, that's when unfortunately there is no other way round of getting comfortable with the uncomfortable and sitting, reflecting, and now looking at what your next phase is going to be.
So be grateful for what you have. It's really important. Gratitude, and we'll do this when we do talk about manifestation. We're going to talk a lot about gratitude. So do find things in your life that you are grateful for, right? But just because you're grateful for all these things doesn't mean that has to be it. Doesn't mean that you have to be happy with that. You can still want to grow more, do more, experience more. That's quite a normal human thing to feel.
Yeah, don't feel guilty.
For
not feeling the gratitude, because I think that's gratitude and guilt can be tend to go hand in hand.
And it's navigating that. We will look at that, but I think again, it's down to the individual. But just don't beat yourself up if things don't feel quite right for you. And I don't know if you've got. There's a task I would like to ask people to just go away. It's a very simple task. But I want you this week to ask yourself one question each evening. Look, I'm so slouched now. Like I'm so chilled with this whole thing. I'm like, pretty much vertical.
We're actually videoing this as well from the side.
Oh,
and Kel's isn't even on there anymore. She's so slouched and relaxed back here that she's not even featuring
probably
in that one.
As well, to be honest, I'll be going to edit like that. So this week, every single evening after your day's just quieting down a little bit, I want to ask yourself one question. What is it today that made me feel alive? One thing that made you feel alive. And don't overthink it. It could be as simple as I had a conversation with my friend and she lit me up, as I often do with our lovely Jodes. Or it could be I managed to get out in nature and have a walk. Or it could be, actually, nothing has made me feel alive today. And then I want you to write that down at the end of the week, evaluate that, and it will probably really open your eyes to a few things that's going on with you, and where maybe some movement, where that lost feeling is coming for, despite the fact that your life may be looking great.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good. It's really that's going to be a brilliant way of highlighting what brings you joy or what doesn't, and actually how much of that you're having in your day-to-day life. Really, I think that's going to be quite surprising for a lot of us, and I think that's a brilliant task. I think I've got one other maybe takeaway as well for you guys, and it's not a daily task like Kel's has really nailed that.
Put you through the ringer.
But I think as well, it's just ask yourself the question that, you know, if your life stays exactly the same as it is now for the next 10 years, how would that make you feel? Would you feel relieved or would you feel quietly disappointed?
Ooh, 10 years.
So that's that's not focusing so much on the now, which is exactly what we need to do, but also just thinking ahead.
God, that's really thought-provoking. It's whether we share or not. Do we share whether we'd be happy within 10 years? Probably not.
No, I would hand up say I think I would be disappointed.
Oh, God, I think I'd be in the ground, to be honest.
Because I feel I'm in the middle of another... I'm evolving, so and I know that. So if in 10 years I haven't evolved, I'm going to be really gutted.
Yeah, well, do you know what? We'll be gutted together, though. So, yeah. Well, I think that's it. I think we're done. So
God, we've rabbited on for nearly 40 minutes, actually.
Lucky you! But thank you as always for listening, guys. We hope you've taken some benefit. And as always, like, send us your questions, send us your feedback. Yeah. Tell us we're absolutely high as kite and we're talking a load of bollocks. This is always only our opinion and the experiences we've been through. And actually, we've been through quite a few in our years, haven't we? So I'm sure you'll hear much more about our sordid lives as we go on. But yeah, cool.
Good job.
Okay,
good episode. I enjoyed that one.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
See you soon. Bye.